Board of Education makes available at least one current copy of the Open Meetings Act, which is posted on the west wall of the meeting room and accessible to all members of the public. Would you now stand with me and recite the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now going to move on to the consent agenda. Can I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 approve the consent agenda as presented, including approval of minutes of the regular Board of Education meeting on January 11th, 2021, approval of the proposed accounts for payment, approval of budgetary receipts and expenditures for January 2021, approval of option students, approval of the resignations of Michael Politsky, Hunter Weiss, Heather Hebel, Karen Hodges, Neil Randall, Kylie Pohl, Amy Randall, and Carla Shelley.
I have a motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
All right, second by Janet. Jason, did you have some comments on budget?
Yes, Treasurer's report. The month of January marks 5/12, or 41.66% of the budget expiration period. We have currently used 39.61% of the budget. This means we are underspent about 2.05%. Pretty typical. That's a good sign. January was a terrific month for us revenue-wise, which monthly revenue was extremely strong in the areas of sped reimbursement, which is our first month of receiving that. We received $863,000. Motor vehicle taxes were traditionally higher than they've been in the past at $123,745. That coupled with 1.25 in tax revenue, 1.25 million in tax revenue. Again, just repeating that our monthly revenue was strong, which is traditional in January as well. Monthly expenditures, bills were $356,845, which is a good month for us. Salary and benefits were $1,744,219, which brings the total to $2,101,065.31 for the Treasurer's report.
Anybody have any comments or questions for Jason on that? All right. Having a motion and a second, can I have your votes, please? Okay. That has passed with 7 votes. Next up, we have outstanding recognition, Employee of the Month, Mr. James.
Good evening. I am proud to be standing next to Mrs. Lori Rempel for February Employee of the Month. Lori is an amazing, outstanding paraprofessional at Lakeland Elementary. She is professional, hardworking, easygoing, and works well with kids and is extremely flexible. Lori goes above and beyond what is asked. She is an asset to our school in so many ways. When asked to assist with our morning shuttle kids as they continue to grow, Lori was one of the first volunteers to come in early to help. She has 20 plus kids that come in between 7:45 and 8:10 that she is in charge of, and not only has she been in charge of them, but she has also created an environment where they can come in, they can help each other with homework, work on flashcards. She helps guides appropriate conversations, and she even started their own little card games in the mornings, which goes very well. Lori runs small group reading, helps with one-on-one with their work, and is like having an extra teacher in the classroom. Lori has a calm demeanor and has one of the best and most positive attitudes I've ever seen within our school. She is an excellent communicator with both kids and adults. Lori is always the first one to stand up and say she will help within a pinch, and she does it with a smile, even when I put her in a classroom she may not want. We're lucky to have Lori in our school. Congratulations, Mrs. Lori Rempel, February's Employee of the Month.
have Business Friend of the Month, Mr. Alexander.
All right. As you know, we started a program this year where we recognize and in appreciation all the businesses that somehow or in one way or another help us provide for our students an education that's not only positive, but an education that has some extra benefits involved. And so this month, we're very excited to have Security First Bank representative Verdella Vertrosky here with us to receive and be awarded this evening. Over the last several years, the bank has pledged over $55,000 to school projects. In 2020, the bank contributed over $13,000 to school activities and programs. Security First Bank believes in the Beatrice community, and we are proud supporters of our schools. The youth are our future leaders. We have excellent teachers and administrators, and we are proud to do what we can to help build a solid foundation. Security First is a proud sponsor of the House of Orange, the gym floor, and Ozone Vision Scoreboard. They also support the Blast After School program, the Bookworm Vending Machine, Beatrice Fine Arts, BHS Renaissance, Orange Booster Club, and sponsor the annual football camp. They support the athletic banquet, BHS Science Club, prom, post-graduation events, the BHS yearbook, and recently donated to the Beam Project. Security First Bank is also a corporate sponsor of the Educational Foundation, annual golf tournament, and a Bee Club member. The bank also offers unique programs to BHS, including the debit card program, where $5 from each new Orangeman debit card enrollment is donated to the school. Security First Bank believes that supporting the success of local students is an investment in tomorrow's leaders and our community's future. We appreciate and are forever grateful for all the support of Security First Bank, and their help is vital in our school, educating our children each and every day. Verdella, thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you very much. It's our privilege to be a part of the community and also the schools. If a child comes into my office, I cannot tell them no. Don't spread that out. But it's just our privilege. We enjoy it. They are our future, and we believe in them. Thank you very much.
She's not very good at telling big kids no either.
No, I'm not.
All right, next up on the agenda, we have the board member recognition. Mr. Alexander.
Every year at this time, the state of Nebraska honors public school board members across the state in recognition of their volunteer hours and appreciation for what they do in helping guide our schools, our students, and our communities. This year, we are thankful to welcome one new board member, Mr. Eric Book, and thank all the rest of our board members for all the kind appreciation and support they have given us throughout the year. It's not easy being a school board member. It's a volunteer position. The pay is not very high. The countless hours on the phone and taking phone calls and emails and text messages sometimes can be overwhelming. But the bottom line is, each and every one of you are here because you care about kids. You care about these faces we see in the audience. And you care about making decisions of policy that represents them in the best fashion. All of them in the best fashion. So, along with the Nebraska Association of School Boards and our state, we welcome you, we thank you for the work that you do. And each one of you is presented tonight with a little cup and some goodies inside of it, and a little coupon for some dinner in appreciation for what you do. So thank you. Let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you very much. Now we'll move on to the information portion. First up would be student update, Cole Dittmer. And did you have his?
I do.
I'll let you read that for him.
Colt, as with many of our students, is very active and very busy. This evening he is practicing for the upcoming play Mermaid that will be in, I believe it's in March, late March or 1st of April. So that's coming quickly, and they are busily preparing for that, so he asked to be excused from tonight's meeting but did submit a report. So Colt submits this report at the preschool. The preschool had their first sledding day. It was many of the children's first time sledding. They were able to practice waiting patiently, taking turns, and practice many math skills and planning the routes down the preschool hill. Enrollment is also underway for the 21-22 school year, so parents, please take note. At the middle school, the counselors are visiting 8th graders, the high school counselors are visiting 8th graders on Monday and Tuesday to register for classes for next year. It's amazing that that's the time of the year we are in right now, but it's coming quickly. The 7th and 8th grade girls basketball team is now 9-6 on the year, with all 3 teams, C, B, and A, compiling 3-2 records so far, with 1 regular season game to be played next Thursday at Plattsmouth and the conference tournament yet to be held next Saturday at Platteview. Due to the weather postponement this Saturday, so they were supposed to play this Saturday, but will be playing next Saturday. The wrestling team will host a duel versus Nebraska City on the 9th. At the high school, the swimming beat Duchesne this weekend and will compete in the RCC on Saturday due to the Trailblazer Conference not having enough teams to have a conference tournament. Wrestling had sub-districts on Saturday, sending all 14 wrestlers to districts later this week. That's quite an accomplishment, I will add. Both basketball teams have had a very good season so far, with only a few regular season games left. The school musical will take place February 28th, March 1st, and 2nd. No tickets will be sold at the doors. Masks will be required from performers and audience members. Parent-teacher conferences are already here next week, and the FBLA is preparing for their state competition coming up soon. At Lincoln and Stoddard Elementary School, they had a week-long celebration in recognition of the Super Bowl week, which looked like a fun week from the pictures I saw, allowing the students to have a fun and exciting week in anticipation of the Super Bowl. Colts report.
All right, thank you. And next up, I guess you could tell us about the Stance report.
In the Stance report, Stance has, we met last week and discussed several of the bills in the legislature at this time. Testimony was provided on behalf of LB 132, requesting the School Finance Review Commission. So that testimony was provided by Stance President Dr. Aaron Plaus from Lakeview Community Schools, and there are several other bills that they are preparing to testify for in the coming weeks. And we have our next meeting Thursday, so I will send you an updated bit of information on the bills that we are preparing to testify. But right now we're kind of in a slow part because the bills we're still waiting to see what comes out of committee. So the ones that have been out of committee, that's predominantly the main ones that we've had a chance to testify on.
Thank you. All right, next up, the public forum citizens request and comments related to agenda items portion of our meeting. Was there anyone who would wish to speak tonight to the board?
Is this about what we had emailed? Is this the portion?
And this is just the portion for public forum,
Okay.
so anyone can speak. It's, what you had requested was to have discussion of mass, but on the agenda. That is the next
The next one.
portion of our
Okay.
agenda.
If you want to speak, she needs to speak now.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you'd like to speak, this would be a good
Oh, wait,
time.
this is where, okay.
Yes.
Yep.
Sorry.
Well, I will start.
And then just state name and address for the good of the order.
5 minutes, timer is at,
Oh.
and you get a 1-minute warning.
There you go.
Sabrina Glenn, 507 North 22nd Street. So I've started this speech 100 times in my head, and I've spent hundreds of hours researching, making sure that I'm doing the right thing. I'm not asking the school district to take off all your masks. I'm simply asking the school district to allow the opt-out forms like they said they would. Quite frankly, I've learned in the past several months specifically in showing these articles and statistics that even when the proof is right in front of you, saying that maybe we didn't do the right thing is harder than just doing the right thing. I'm here today asking the school board for help. We parents and community members need your help. We parents were told the opt-out forms would be honored unless in Tier 3. It's even printed in the FAQ on the school website and on their Facebook page. I've literally been shown pictures of our teachers not wearing masks in the classroom. I've seen countless pictures of staff and students posted on social media with their mask below their nose. Surely we can agree that if something isn't done properly, then why are we doing it at all? Why half-ass something? Is that the legal part of this? Is this simply to cover the school's hiney? Mr. Alexander told me last week that I couldn't find a school within 200 miles that is having class without masks. So in true Jurgen's nature, I took your challenge. And guess what? Papillion has a school right now that is running regularly. In August, they decided that they would run it like they have before. There is no social distancing, no masks, and guess what? The mom that I spoke to who works there and spoke to the Omaha Health Board, they've yet to see an outbreak. We parents who sign the opt-out forms completely understand that if our unmasked child is in contact with a positive child, that our child will be asked to quarantine. That's fine, we get it. But again, we're not seeing the numbers, you guys. We're not seeing kids falling over and dying from this. And can somebody tell me why the US is so different from the UK? I have military friends there. Their mask policy is 12 and up. And apparently the virus is way different in Mexico because we just got back and it's 5 feet. So US is 6 feet, must be a stronger virus. See, board members, we community members, we hired you. And you hired our superintendent. And right now we're asking you to make the school uphold their end of the deal, to honor their word to the parents. Because if not, you're now telling every parent that while our money is good enough for donations, and our time is good enough to help with book fairs, concessions, and field trips, our brains are not good enough to make a decision about our own children. And I have a way for the board and the school to prove me wrong. Mr. Alexander thinks that while a few are upset, he thinks that probably 1,000 have thanked him. All right, so let's do this. If I'm some crazy lady, then you have an option to prove me wrong. Send the opt-out forms home Friday in every student's folder. Give them a week to turn it in and see how many parents sign it. You guys made it extremely hard for the original form to be signed, so if you want to actually know how many parents are out there, send them home. I will not come if they do not come back the way I'm looking for, the way that would prove to you my point. You won't hear from me again. I will not take a stance against it. I will deal with it. But I don't think you do that, because I think deep down, you do know that you're only hearing the voice of a few at this moment, but there are more parents out there that side with unmasking our healthy children than what you're just going to hear from me and other parents. So I'm going to leave you with a few numbers. In Germany on 10/26/20, they had a study done on the effects of masks on their children, 26,000 children to be exact. They were wearing the mask an average of 5 hours a day. Our kids are wearing them 7+ hours a day. Impairments were reported by 70% of parents. Irritability, 60%. Headache, 53%. Difficulty concentrating, 50%. Less happiness, 49%. Reluctant to go to school, 44%. Malaise, 42%. Impaired learning, 38%. And fatigue, 37%. You guys, these stats don't surprise me. We ask our kids to take on a lot right now. They've been told that not wearing a mask will kill their grandma, Steve the custodian, Dorothy the cook, and Tom the bus driver. And that is not okay. We are asking our kids to stop living to protect others, and as parents in this room and on the board, surely we can all agree that that should not be on the shoulders of our children. My kids have continued to live their life, and we continue with the sleepovers, the sporting events, the vacations, everything, because life is truly too short. And I'm not asking my kids to sacrifice. And let's not forget that we have a better chance of dying, the kids do, in a bus accident than of COVID. 134 children aged birth to 14 have passed from COVID. That's less than 0.005. It is my understanding that COVID units are closing in the CHI hospitals in the state because they don't even have enough patients right now to warrant them being open. And it may be helpful for you all to know that in the past 11 months, not a single child was in a COVID bed, not one. I don't care if you're for masks or against masks. It makes no difference to me. The mandate has closed and people are still wearing them. That's not what is here. We were told something, it didn't get followed through with. And I don't know if you guys are voting tonight, but I'm begging you, do not make these children wear them another 30 days. I'm begging you to vote tonight. I'm asking for your help. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Joseph Brewer, PhD, 1201 North 11th Street here in Beatrice. Beginning of the school year, obviously I came before the board, had some discussions regarding masks, made my position well known. Throughout the course of the year, one of the things I did talk about was my concern about bullying at school. I was told that that would not be the case, that everybody would be on their best behavior. Dr. Nielsen received several emails from me over the course of the school year. I was contemplating sharing a bunch of different things tonight, but really just come down to this was my children followed the rules, wore their masks when they were told. End of the day, unlike most of the adults in this town and children, I shared the mask studies, went through the data and all the results with my children, educated them about what it was, what it wasn't. There are those who are going to talk about science this, science that. Science is a process. The reality is that one has to be capable of understanding whether the process was done properly or not. The reality is that the theory was masks were supposed to participate in this viral outbreak in a certain way. That was the hypothesis. Hypothesis has not played out. I did talk to the board specifically about some of the reasons, some of the other things that went on, why masks don't work. I shared that with my children. As Sabrina talked about, I mean, teachers, students called my children grandma killers as they were wearing their masks, as they were told to. I polled my kids, to be perfectly honest. It was disgusting behavior of the teachers and the children, and no room for dialogue, no room for discussion. And at the end of the day, you can look at 1,000 different things about what maybe could or could not have been done. You can look at our school district, you can look at counties. I mean, there's 2 counties next door to us, Jefferson and Saline County. Combined population and land area is almost identical to Gage County. They have 4 deaths, we have 16. There's a population demographics are almost identical between the 2 counties. The reality is that there's more going on here than merely just masks. And at the end of the day, I offered my time to come talk to the school, to walk them through the actual science of what masks do. I had offered my time to come talk to about diffusion mechanisms, particle dynamics, all those different things I would have expressed to you, and at the end of the day, you could have chosen to participate in the sense of sharing the information, educating people, and I think at the end of the day, it came down to the fact that, much like tonight, you'll probably hear some more statistics on some things. I would say, in all likelihood, it's easier just to go, well, the CDC says. Well, I'm homeschooling my kids now. At the end of the day, it's going to come down to the fact that I have very little intention of putting them through this level of abuse again, to be perfectly honest. So, if you guys want to understand, once again, I'm offering my time free of charge, as always, volunteered my time to walk you through the CDC studies, the Infectious Disease Society studies. I offered my time to the health board. I offered my time to Dr. Paulmeyer. Nobody took it. Either you want to know the information or you don't. So, on my end, there is a reality here for me, thank you, that this is a school in which our children are supposed to be educated. Present them the information as we ought to be, and let's have discussion. Right now, there is no discussion, and there's no dissemination of information, and it's appalling. So, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Amber Walter. I reside at 1509 May Street. I am standing up here to talk on behalf of myself, Josh Mays, Mary Garman, and Kenneth Britton for our daughter/stepdaughter Tiffany Mays. We all would like for the school board to take a step back and look at what is being done to these kids. Our child has not been able to be in school but for 2 weeks this entire year due to opt-out forms not being followed when can. Tiffany has a hard time learning and has an IEP for a lot of schooling purposes. How is it fair to her to be stuck at home trying to learn, but she can't focus to do schoolwork on the Chromebook, and it's a huge struggle. It is hectic trying to get her to focus to do her schoolwork. Honestly, me as her mom has had to sit there and type everything for her and pretty much not do her homework, but do her homework for her, if that makes sense. She's there with me, but she can't comprehend anything. She will do the schoolwork that is written out and on paper that we send back, but when it comes to the technology part of it, she can't focus. The screen is too small for her poor eyes to even concentrate. We would ask and request that the opt-out forms be acknowledged so our poor daughter can come back to school and get the learning she deserves. No child should have to go this long without being in school, especially with an IEP that truly ain't doing her any good at this moment due to the fact of learning is remote and hard for her. Furthermore, it is sad that my third grade daughter says she needs to be in third grade again due to this, and it ain't fair for her falling behind. It's honestly the school's fault for falling behind, knowing she has all these issues when it comes to schooling. We would appreciate the opt-out forms being recognized and put into use so she can come back to school to finish this year out. Thank you. And furthermore, I had to quit my job to help take care of my nephew due to being quarantined 3 times. He goes to paddle. And I have pictures on my phone of him being quarantined, but yet kids still being in school and the teacher and the other kids not wearing a mask. How is that fair? It's not. So it would be nice if you guys would recognize the opt-out forms again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amy Southwick, 113 Wildwood Court. First of all, I want to thank you as a school district for having in-person school. It's vitally important. But what I want to talk to you about tonight is what no one else is looking at. I understand masks from a coronavirus point of view, but we're not looking at it from a broader spectrum. And I think when we take one lens and look at masks from that lens, we can find a lot of reasons why it makes sense. But here's the thing, whether you're a masker or no masker, when you read those studies, what they have in common is at the end it says more studies need to be done to really know what's truly out there. So basically it says we don't know 100% if masks are preventing spread. We don't know if they're not. We don't know. But here's what's scary. If I took a time machine and went back about a year or two and said, I want to do a study and I want to know the effects on children if I cover this much of their face on with their facial recognition expressions. What does that do for their development? What does that do for their confidence? What does that do to their psychological? The next thing is, I'm not going to repeat the study that Sabrina said, but those statistics, I can tell you every single one of those things is happening in my house. There was a German neurologist that took it a step further and looked at that study and started to say, is there oxygen deprivation happening and are we damaging children's cognitive abilities that we won't even know for up to 10 years because nobody's looking at it? Why? Again, if we would have taken a time machine and in 2018 somebody said, let's put something across a child's mouth and nose for 6 to 8 hours a day and see if it has any effect on their cognitive, any effect on their breathing, any effect on their life. It probably would have been thought as a very unethical study. So what's really difficult here today is to know truly what the masks are doing on a broader spectrum. Okay, but what I have done is I've done some reading, and a couple of things. What we knew in August and what we know now are way different. So in August, we thought we had 90 days of immunity. There was a study done in Oxford on healthcare workers. It's every week they've been doing on healthcare workers that contracted coronavirus early on. And what they have found 33 weeks out, they still have immunity. That's how our bodies work. That's how it's always been, that once you have immunity, it lasts. So we can not worry about the 90 days. If a teacher has had corona, if a child has had corona, if a staff member has had corona, the need for a mask is gone. What I'm asking today is for an opportunity for every student, staff, and faculty to make their own decision, because what we're looking at is this mask is more of a medical procedure, and because everyone says more studies need to be done, and we're all looking at just the observational aspect of it, then you've just put me or my child or a teacher or a faculty member as a part of a medical study, and with the opt-out, you allowed me to have consent or not to have consent. But when you took that opt-out consent in away, you took away my consent, And if you want to get really technical, that violates the rule number 1 of the Nuremberg Code. Rule number 4 of the Nuremberg Code is an experiment conducted has to avoid all unnecessary physical and mental suffering and injury. And since we don't have anywhere to look because studies haven't been done, but the little studies that are starting to be done are saying maybe this isn't the best idea for children. So I'm asking you as a board, can we look at the mask issue beyond coronavirus? Because if what this German neurologist said is true and we're actually giving cognitive damage to kids, that's a huge thing, and I don't consent to that. I looked at some psychological studies that focused on facial expression recognition, and this is what it says in a lot of different readings, but facial expression recognition is essential for the ability for good interpersonal relationship. Impairments to it are associated with negative consequences, such as difficulties in identifying and differentiating and describing feelings. Face processing abilities are generally from K through 8. They increase across childhood and adolescence, and research generally agrees on the improvement in recognition performance with age, but we have taken a year of that away. So we're taking development, emotional development of emotion, of emotional intelligence, of emotional maturity away because you cannot. I've talked to so many teachers, they can't look through the classroom and understand that Johnny doesn't get this because of the look on his face because she can't see the look on the face. The student can't relate with the teacher because you can't see facial expression. And so everything I've read, down to where it says emotional theorists, when you take away that emotional recognition, in the nonverbal forms of emotional expression can negatively affect intra and interpersonal behavior, may serve as a risk factor for poor adjustment in future and adverse outcomes, behavioral issues including anxiety, bipolar, schizophrenia. So these are some serious negative aspects when you cannot read someone's facial expression, and I don't think any of that has ever been considered when we look at masking our teachers and our students. And so for that reason, I would ask that you let a parent decide on the big picture on if a mask is the right or wrong choice. Thank you.
Thank you. Was there anyone?
Lindy Jurgens, 14594 South 25th Road. I've spoke with all of you throughout the year. I'm a hands-on parent, and at the beginning of the year, we were told we would have this opt-out form, right? And only if it went into tier 3 would that be taken away from us. At that point, I was not okay with that because I'm my daughter's parent. And at the end of the day, there's so many things to weigh when it comes to a child, the risk, the benefit of everything that they do. And at this point, I feel like you have literally taken that option away from us. I've done my research, and all of you guys probably have too, but when it comes down to it, like, I'm the person that makes those decisions for my daughter. And I would just ask that you look at that and give us back our right as a parent to be able to make those decisions for our children.
Hi, I'm Chelsea Laughlin, 1006 Maryville Street here in town. I'm looking at a different perspective. I want to opt out back in. No, my daughter cannot wear a mask. She has to wear a face shield, and it still affects her. I have watched her grades go down from her being a student who could snap off spelling words to now she can't get it. She don't get it. Comprehension's down. Her anxiety's up. She gets headaches. I'm looking at maybe having to take her out of school and homeschool her for a while because her headaches are getting so bad, even with the face shield. She's also got sores that are starting on her ears. We've tried to adjust it. It does not adjust with a face shield. I'm just asking, please, bring back the opt-out. That's what I signed it at the beginning of the year, so she wouldn't have to wear a mask, alone a face shield. We don't need this. I mean, as a perspective, I do work for the schools. I work in the cafeteria. I watch kids come in with their mask under their nose. I hear complaints because they don't like it. I can't honestly hear anybody understand them because of the mask. But that's their choice. It's your choice. My choice is I chose to sign the opt-out form so she wouldn't have to wear it, and now we're at a thing where now she's gotta wear it all the time. So I'm just asking if you could please bring back the opt-out, it'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jennifer Ernst. Address is 602 North 25th Street here in Beatrice. I never even had the option or knew there was an option for an opt-out for the mask mandate at the beginning of this school year. On more than one occasion, I have had difficulties in the high school with my child. Let me ask you a question. As I sit here and I speak to you, do I look ill to you? Do you notice a physical sickness in me? Nobody? My speech is well. My heart rate's good. But guess what? I've undergone so many surgeries, you couldn't even believe it. I have endometriosis. I have had cervical cancer. I have asthma. I have anxiety. I have depression. Someone that's claustrophobic or anxious, you want to put that on their face and give them a panic attack, is what you're doing. My dentist is a local dentist and has informed me that not only is it causing breathing issues, you're holding your own bacteria in your mouth, which is causing teeth to decay, and your dental bills are going up. Think about not removing the mask for a drink. These children are supposed to be getting mask breaks during their block period classes that don't always happen. My son has come home on multiple occasions and said, we didn't get a mask break. The children are using the restrooms more during the classroom to get more of a break. They're acting out. They're vaping in school. They're doing all sorts of things to try to deal with their own stress. And us as parents have no way of dealing with this because we don't have that right as a parent, because you guys take it away the minute they walk in your building. The minute they walk in your buildings, everything we've said goes out the frickin' window. And us as parents aren't even allowed in your schools. My son forgot to take his medication before he went to school for his anxiety. You make me wait in a bitter, cold, windy day outside for my son to get called out of class. Yet I walk in that school office and not a single person sitting in that high school office has a mask on their face. Their particles, they're everywhere. They don't put on a mask until someone walks through their door. The chairs are contaminated. The desks are contaminated. The doorknobs, the light switches, they're all contaminated. Because you don't wear a mask yourself. Why would you subject a minor to do something that you, as adults, are choosing not to do yourselves? I have children in private school here in town. They don't mandate masks in the daycare, in the basement, but when they go upstairs to the classrooms, they have to have masks. Again, cross-contamination. Are you literally following these children around with a bottle of Lysol spraying as they fart or as they cough down the hall? No.
1 minute.
I'm sorry?
1 minute.
Okay. So all I'm asking is, like Sabrina said, send out the opt-out forms. See how many parents respond this time with the opt-out option. Because I guarantee it's going to be more now that it's more known than it was in the beginning of the year.
Thank you.
informed of how Beatrice High School was handling forgotten masks. I would like to read to you today from the student handbook. Beatrice Public Schools strives to provide physically safe and emotionally secure environments for all students and staff. In the absence of specific instructions, you should comply with the spirit of good citizenship. Treat others as you would like to be treated. Our expectations for you will be high, but they will not be unreasonable or fair. How is this mask reasonable or fair? This mask was brought to me today by a student who was told to wear it when they forgot their own mask at home. It was provided by the school just as you see it now. Next, the abuse policy. Any school employee who has reasonable cause to believe that a minor child has been abused must report such abuse. The employee will notify the Nebraska Department of Social Services. This mask is abuse. This mask is mental and emotional abuse. It is required of our students to wear it. Why has no one reported that from the school? Next, communicable disease control policy. The Beatrice School District will work cooperatively with the State Department of Health. Since our state did not give guidelines for schools, because the Department of Education left it up to individual school districts, your current policy is excessive. Next, liability of school. The school will take precautions to ensure the safety of students, but it cannot assume liability. A mask is a known medical device, and the school will not assume any liability for forcing children to wear it. It goes without reason that students can then refuse to wear something that has reasonable risk involved. Next, nurse. If a family chooses to opt out of the state-mandated screening, it becomes the family's responsibility to obtain a physical examination from a physician of their choice. If families can opt out of a one-time medical exam, it goes without reason that they can also opt out of a forced medical device. If medication administration is required to have written instruction and must be in the original container, why is the district not requiring written prescriptions for the wearing of masks from each individual child's primary physician to be wearing them at school? The City of Beatrice's Board of Health saw the error for requiring medical devices on all citizens, and its attorney changed the now expired health mandate from masks to face coverings. Your own policy has clearly laid out the requirements for medical devices in schools. It states a completed consent form is needed. Over-the-counter items must have completed consent form that has been signed. Masks are sold over the counter. Amazon sells them. Medical items will not be provided. The financial responsibility is not the district's. We ask parents and students cooperation in making our school as safe as possible for everyone. By providing these medical devices, the district is in clear violation of its own written policy. You ask for cooperation of parents and students, but you are currently failing to abide by your own written policy. Next, parent-student rights. They have the right to be respected as an individual. Which part of this mask is showing respect? Expect reasonable protection for their children from physical harm while under school authority. This mask is harmful. It creates a negative connotation for which other students and staff can bully a child. Next, student grievance. It instructs students to speak with the principal. How can they speak to the principal if he is the one allowing this treatment? Next, student parental concerns. First, contact the teacher. Second, contact the principal. Third, contact the superintendent. Fourth, contact the Board of Education if the problem was not resolved to your satisfaction. These steps were followed time and again by parents this school year, yet not one attempt was made to correct the problem. So now, here I sit before you, insisting you take immediate action and stop this abuse of our children. Next, dress and general appearance. Students should not dress in a manner that interferes with the learning environment. The first code states no hats, stocking caps, visors, bandanas, and sunglasses are prohibited inside the school building. When I called and asked why these were not allowed, I was told because they are a distraction and it makes it difficult to see a student's face. How does this mask not violate that rule? Anything that has inappropriate statements will be prohibited in the building. Public shaming is inappropriate. The wearing of any clothing or of one's personal appearance disrupts the educational process. It is prohibited. If it is determined that an article of clothing bears a message that any student, employee would find objectionable, then the educational process has been affected. How has this mask, provided by the school, enhanced a child's learning experience? Forms of school discipline. I found no discipline code in your student handbook that allowed for the use of public shaming of its students. Finally, harassment and bullying policy. Inappropriate behaviors are to be identified and corrected. Is this mask a current strategy that you find useful? After the shaming received by staff, how could any student find the courage to approach a member of staff, let alone believe that there was no retaliation going to be had against them? They came to the public because you have failed them. How can the district hold the students to this handbook code but allow its teachers to be the direct cause of bullying and harassment? Currently, 1 in 4 students have considered suicide during the 2020 pandemic. This can only be compounded when your school teachers and administration are the ones doing the bullying and harassment. If you want to know what it says, remind me to bring my mask.
Thank you.
Heather Wagoner, 1205 Arthur Street. Quoted from July 29, 2020 email sent out by Danielle Fairbanks, and the information also posted on the BPS website. Face coverings. Each student will be provided 2 cloth coverings. Face coverings will be required for K through 12 unless a parent signs an opt-out form and recommended for PK, preschool. When the Public Health Solution risk dial is orange and we determine we are at Tier 3 status, coverings will be required. Opt-out forms are invalid. Do we forget about this email? Do we forget about what was stated to the parents? Why is the school district not following their own guidelines? Why do they get to pick and choose what tier we are in? January 30th, Nebraska's directed health measure risk dial dropped to green, which is the lowest it can drop to, and everything is open 100%. Public Health Solutions District risk dial is down to yellow, moderate, which was hovering between yellow and orange the week before. Gage County has dropped lower in yellow, as it was already in the yellow last week. As soon as that risk dial dropped down in the yellow, these families should have had their opt-out forms honored. Why does BPS administration feel they are exempt from honoring what they told parents before school started? There are 5 active cases in the entire school district. Over the past month, the positive cases have continued to drop. How is this a high-risk spread? Why are we not looking at the numbers? The total positive case percentage for Gage County in 11 months is 11%. 21,500 plus people in the entire county. And total deaths is less than, this is not with, they did not put the death certificate, so this is not even an absolute number, but 0.002%. Out of all of the age categories, the children are the absolute lowest. Why are you subjecting the children to wear face coverings? Why are you, as the administration, making that choice for the parents? We should have the right to informed consent about a medical device for our children. Yes, a medical device. I urge you to stop this madness. I urge you to allow the opt-out forms, as you stated, would be allowed before the school year even started. I pulled my 2 older children from Beatrice Public School on August 6th after much consideration about what the school year may look like. I had a bad feeling that the district would choose to do whatever they chose to do after assuring parents they were doing what was best for everyone. And I also worried how the teachers and students would treat the children who chose to go maskless. The main issue that has been reoccurring in the many conversations I've had with people is that the teachers and administrators are bullying the children. It is never, and I mean never, okay for these teachers and administrators who these children look up to be humiliating them. And to do this in front of their peers, it's abuse. Plain and simple, this is mental and emotional abuse. These children are already suffering enough with suicidal thoughts, anxiety, depression, infections on their faces from their masks, respiratory infections from constant mask use, headaches, bloody noses, not to mention the many breathing issues. When will you all wake up and see what's happening? After some of the things I've witnessed and heard about in the past couple months, it will be very unlikely that I will re-enroll my elementary school children in the future because I cannot trust Beatrice Public School administration and teachers to have my children's best interests at heart.
Thank you. Have we reached the time frame yet for a public forum? Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone, for those coming to speak. Next up, we have the discussion portion of our agenda. Mr. Alexander and Dr. Nielsen, you have COVID-19 masks.
I think at this point, obviously, thank you all for being here this evening and sharing your thoughts, feelings, and comments with us. It's very obvious that amongst several people, the masks are not a popular venture. So I empathize with you. I understand that masks are not something that everybody's excited about. To be quite honest with you, I'm personally not excited about them either. I've been in this business for 30 years in education. When I was a sixth grader, a little bit older than Nora there in the front row, I decided I wanted to be a teacher because my aunt was a teacher. And I did that because I loved kids, and I was only a sixth grader. And I still love kids, and I will always love kids. Unfortunately, this pandemic has made us make decisions that are not necessarily popular. And I do have a statement that I would like to read, but I think it's pertinent at this time for the Board of Education, for this discussion to be opened up to them for comments. But I will say this on behalf of myself, Dr. Nielsen, and the many, many educational professionals across this state, not just Beatrice Public Schools. This is not a situation that any of us asked for. Quite frankly, it's not a situation that any of us wanted to deal with. Education is a much more broad perspective industry than a lot of other industries. We take kids and we do the absolute best that we can with them. It's not like sitting in a manufacturing plant where you have a stamp and you stamp and it comes out perfect at the end. If that were the case, it would be much easier. We as administrators are most oftentimes put in positions of making decisions on behalf of thousands of kids. Not just one, not just two, but thousands of kids. Very different than you as a parent. I myself am a parent. These people here are parents. So, as we continue this discussion, I think it's important to understand this is not a situation that any of us asked to have to deal with. It's not a situation that any of us are enjoy dealing with. I can tell you that none of our principals like seeing masks on kids. So let's keep that in mind as we move forward. Board of Education, this is your time to discuss. I do have a statement at the end that I would like to read, but I'll let you have your time for discussion at this point.
Are we allowed to speak at all after you speak?
No, the public forum time is your time.
Just speaking from my own personal experience, I'm a parent with 2 elementary-age daughters in the school system. It's been a tough year for every kid. My children were opt-out students for the masks this year. They've suffered from anxiety. One of my daughters has eczema, and it's gotten significantly worse this year. She's got sores on her faces. My other daughter has been threatened multiple times to be sent to the principal's office for removing her mask to take a drink of water. They come home dehydrated and grumpy every single day. Our district is telling me as a parent, completely removed from the school board, but me as a parent, that it's doing what's best for my child. Yet they come home every single day being loaded with sugar and sweets that we don't get at home, treats, donuts and cookies and all of this just junk food. And I find it really hard to believe that the district is doing what's best for my child when they're being told to wear a mask, but then we're feeding them full of foods that can give them further health complications. But aside from all of my personal experiences, setting that aside and listening to what these parents have had to say tonight, it is heartbreaking to me. We've lost students from this district to bullying. The mask that Ashley showed is absolutely ridiculous, and I cannot believe that our high school is doing that to students who forget their masks. My students forget masks almost weekly because we don't wear them outside of school. The studies that Amy talked about, the long-term effects, I really wonder if we are taking that into consideration. And my biggest issue with this entire, you all know my position on this, and I've asked multiple times this year, what are the metrics for wearing a mask? Because currently it still says phase 3 orange category. We have no metrics. There was no rhyme or reason for when we started wearing masks for everyone. When we took them away, we need some sort of system, something that says, okay, we need to wear masks, or at this point we don't have to wear them anymore. And I know that nothing about COVID has been cut and dry, but if our public health system can have a scale, if our state can have a scale, then I think we need to create something that gives these parents an idea of when we can honor an opt-out form, or if we can honor an opt-out form. But we need to know, because if there's 5 cases in the district right now, and very few throughout the county, it seems pretty ridiculous that we're still subjecting our students to these masks every single day.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments?
I'd like to make a comment. Anybody remember this? We took an oath to it. This is what I'm here for. As a board member, we should first turn to this. Some of the best advice I ever got in my life was do your own research. When it comes to forcing our children to wear a mask, it's not about health. It's about submission, obeying, and worst of all, it's indoctrinating our children into making them think that they have to ask for permission for their God-given rights. When the government fears the people, there is liberty, but when the people fear the government, there is tyranny, and that is exactly what this is, medical tyranny. If this was about health, then how about mandate healthy living, exercise, no smoking, no alcohol? For these kill more people than anything. This is about submission, not health. The psychological damage that you're doing to our children is unacceptable. Showing them videos talking about life and death and scaring our children and shaming them into wearing masks for something that kills less than 1% of the population is unacceptable. And for children under 18 years old, it's almost unmeasurable. As a school board member elected by the people, when it comes to the future of our school district, I don't care what's happening around the world. I don't care what's happening in New York or California. I don't care what Norris or Tri-County is doing. I care about Beatrice. That is all I care about. I won't listen to or take orders from the unelected CDC or World Health Organization who has proven over and over again that they do not know what's best for us. They are funded by foreign countries. I took an oath to the Constitution. Twice now. Twice. First time I had no idea what it meant. Now I do. And it says that we have right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I have constitutional rights over my children. I know what's best. Not the school board, not the Board of Education, not the federal government. Me. Me. It's been argued many times in the court of law under the 14th Amendment. Citizens' rights, where it's been argued many times in court cases that the parent has rights over the child, not the school. So I took this oath. I have the rights over my child. It's not morally wrong, but it's also criminal. Under Title 18, Section 242 of the United States Code, under the color of law, it states that if you deprive any citizen of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, you are not recognized in your position. Police officer, school board member, city council, unelected board of public health. No, and it's criminal. And it goes on to list about facing prison time and fines. And I fear for that for our schools and the schools in America. We need to get on the right side of the law here. I will never support forcing our children to wear masks, ever. This is over when we, the people, say it's over. This is still America, where we still have freedom of choice. If you believe masks work, great. Wear them. Don't worry about me not wearing one. They work, right? If you want to make your child wear a mask, do it. It is your constitutional right. It's on you. If you don't, then don't.
Yeah, I think, one thing that Jason did allude to in the beginning of this Well, we gotta go back to March when the state and the governor made the decision to close schools and shut down a lot of things that were happening within the state of Nebraska. I believe at that time, we didn't really know what we know now, or what was going to happen. We really didn't see the spike at that time when you look across the healthcare system, and I think a lot of this is, are we going to overwhelm the healthcare system and not be able to take care of our patients? You guys have seen, granted it's not in Beatrice, Nebraska, but there's been areas in Texas and California where we don't have that population base, but we're literally, healthcare workers are having to make decisions on who they treat and who they don't treat. We didn't get to that point at that time, and so I think maybe, we jumped the gun then, and I'm not saying Beatrice, but I think maybe even the state of Nebraska did. Then let's fast forward to, I believe it was, I looked today, around November 20th was the kind of the spike in the state where the healthcare system was beginning to be overwhelmed. We got through that. We're down as far as hospitalizations. We're still, I believe, not at that point to say that we're past that spike. Yes, the numbers are declining, but we don't know that it's going to change. Plans change. Everything with COVID has changed on a daily basis. We know that. Mr. Alexander, Dr. Nielsen deal with that on a daily basis. Nothing is set in stone anywhere in the United States with COVID. Things have to change. Things have to be changeable. As a board, we gave a resolution to administration to make those decisions around COVID. We put that trust in them, so we have to continue to do that. That resolution, as far as I know, still stands and will throughout the school year. I think one of the other things to look at as well is the prevalence of flu in our district has been nothing, so I think masks are doing something. In that case, I also look at, we did make the decision to have the opt-out form, so kind of on the fence on that side on whether we allow that or not.
At what point do we say, okay, we feel safe to take the mask requirement away?
And Aaron, you made a comment, sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine.
You did make a comment earlier that I do agree with, and we actually discussed this at work too. We have to come up with what is that data point. And I think we have to, as a district, determine that, because the state's not going to do it. We know that. The State Board of Education, the state has said it's up to each individual district. So what is that data point, whether it's, again, hospitalizations, cases, I don't know what that is. But yes, I would agree with you, to have something along those lines would be a bonus. That way everybody in this room, everybody in the district knows we hit X, then we know that either opt-out forms are allowed again or masks are just completely optional, whatever that may be.
That's all I wanted this entire time, so I hope that as a board or as a district we can come up with that. Because at this point, I'm sure everyone in the audience tonight is wondering at what point, if it's not tonight, when is it? Is it next year? Is it 2 years from now when hopefully COVID is completely obliterated? Or at what point are we going to feel safe with removing the masks? But we have to have some sort of metrics.
And I know cases are down in the district. I know that. And I don't know if the masks are helping that or not. But it is one constant that has been in place. So since we've had the mask full mandate, our cases have declined. But again, I can't say for sure that that's because of the mask, but it is the one constant that's been in place.
Now, before anybody else makes a comment up here, I want to make a point of order. You demand respect out there. We were respectful and did not laugh or make comments while you were speaking. Please do not do that while we're up here speaking. Did anyone else have anything they wish to?
Well, I guess I think it's important that people know how different board members feel, and I believe that having all wear masks has played a significant role in keeping our schools open for the majority of the year. I also believe this controversy will continue to be an issue until there is some kind of agreement on credible sources. I will be honest and say I looked to local medical doctors and Anthony Fauci for information. He has a lifetime of experience in education with infectious diseases. One of the sources I saw quoted on a recent local Facebook post referred to a doctor whose area of expertise is removing tattoos. I prefer to listen to Dr. Anthony Fauci. I've also heard the idea that parents are not having their children attend school because of the mask mandate. I would like to share a story which illustrates another point of view. On Friday, I had a parent come in with an application for the after-school program. Her child currently attends another program after school, but one of the reasons she is changing is because, in her words, BLAST takes the wearing of masks seriously. Another argument is the right to not wear a mask. With rights come responsibilities. What about your responsibility to not infect other people? And finally, only 25% of the staff is tested positive for COVID, so that leaves 75% of the staff still vulnerable. I want to keep teachers and students in school because I firmly believe it is best to have the classroom teacher in the classroom, not quarantining at home. And the vaccine is so close. I believe it is in the best educational interest of both students and staff that the mask mandate remains in place. I just thought it was, in all fairness, that you should know how each of us feels.
Doris?
You know, I would agree with Eric. You know, when this first started, when we first did the resolution, that was really pretty early in the whole process. We didn't know what we were looking at. But I do know that that Mr. Alexander, Mrs. Nielsen, and our entire administrative team wanted kids in school. When we closed in March last year, we had parents saying, we can't do this. We need our kids in school. And so I think that when these decisions were made, it was with the intent to keep our children in school in the safest possible manner, and our staff. Granted, our children maybe aren't the super spreaders, maybe they aren't the ones getting sick, but if your staff is sick, your kids are going to be home, because we need teachers and staff, and you can't take a kindergarten teacher and put them in a high school math class to cover. I know that we've had administrators covering in classrooms where teachers are sick. I honestly believe that our administrators love every child in the district. I honestly believe that. I think their heart is in the right place. I have to tell you, we were in a committee meeting last week, and we were talking about education stuff, and we had almost giddy administrators because we were talking about something other than a pandemic. I guess one of the things that is in my mind is we are really close. We have a vaccine that is becoming available to our staff, hopefully, by the end of February, early part of March. Anyone, and before you think that I'm going to mandate vaccines, I'm not. I think that's everybody's personal choice, whether they want to take the vaccine or not. But I think we are so close, and I really hate to give up when we're maybe a month from being able to change everything again, maybe a month to 6 weeks. I would love to see our seniors have a decent graduation this year. So, you know, I just really think that by allowing our administrators to make those decisions, the resolution was passed because it did allow our administrators to make decisions on a day-to-day basis rather than calling a board meeting every single time a decision had to be made. They have to publish it for 3 days. So, you know, we could have made no decisions. I would agree with Mr. Alexander. I don't love the masks. I don't think anybody does. I haven't found anybody, so. But I think they've done a good job, and I think we just need to stay the course until hopefully by the end of March. That's my hope.
I would say I hope that administration checks into that mask that the lady shared. I mean, I think we obviously need more information about that, and no, I don't think it's one bit appropriate. But, I mean, I want to be clear about that.
Agreed. I have just one quick thing I'd like to share in response to what Doris said about Dr. Fauci. Like I said, do your own research. There's an amazing article. It's on right here, the Journal of Infectious Diseases from 2008. Anthony Fauci. Sometimes you can send links all day long. They won't read it. You got to print it out, highlight, and stick it in their face sometimes. Dr. Fauci wrote a report in 2008 stating that in his findings, the 1919 Spanish flu, over 50% of the deaths was not from the virus at all. Can anybody guess why? Masks, bacterial pneumonia. I mean, this doctor has been flip-flop this entire time. I got a report right here from the Daily Stand where in March, the Oracle, Dr. Fauci stated there's no reason to be walking around with a mask. Then he changes it the next week. And like I'm saying, I'm not trying to insult anybody, but do your own research. Let's not accept everything at face value. Because when our kids are involved here, it's very heartbreaking when they come home and they don't like school anymore. That's all I have.
Eric, I would, not that we need to debate this at this point in time, because I don't think it's going to be an exercise in futility, but I would like to talk about that point that you make about doing your own research, because I agree with you. I think that's important. And I did do a significant amount, and not just myself. There's a great deal of people that were invested in all these decisions that we're talking about. We established a COVID task force team this summer that spent a great deal of time and effort trying to develop this plan, and I'll speak more to the plan in a moment. But when you talk about research and doing your own research, we were provided a list of links that supposedly was a list of research that had been done on the effects of masks and the negative effects on masks. So with that list of links, I went back and researched every single one of them. And I'm looking to count to see how many there were. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Approximately 24 to 25 links that I was sent about the anti-effects of masks. And so I did research, as our team did, a great deal of research prior to all this happening, when, quite honestly, we were in the middle of trying to make a decision about something that nobody knew anything about, which was this virus. And so, in the last board meeting that we had, we were provided a list of links that was research about the negative effects on masks. And I went back and researched every single one of those links. And what I found, quite honestly, is a great deal of them came from a website called Nebraskans Against the Overreach of Government, is where the links came from. The other thing that I did was I went to those links and I specifically read a great deal of information. So I'm just going to use this first link, but I'd be glad to have you in and read responses that I wrote to all 25 of those links. The first link was a link that said a May 2020 meta-study on pandemic influenza published by the US CDC found that face masks had no effect, neither as personal protective equipment nor as a source control. And the link is listed here. So I went in and I researched that. Essentially, this study wasn't even conducted on COVID-19, but this was a link I was provided to research on the effects of masks and the negative effects of masks. So first of all, it wasn't even a research model conducted on COVID-19, but on the flu, influenza. The results are largely inconclusive anyway within the research itself. The relevant quote is, "We did not find evidence masks are effective," which is science speak for we're not really sure yet. It isn't the same as masks are not effective. And keep in mind, this study was done in the very early days of the pandemic. It was done in May of 2020, so last last spring when we were still finding out information about COVID. So more importantly, one of the senior authors of this study, Benjamin J. Cowling, went on a few weeks later to release another study that concluded masks do indeed help prevent the spread of COVID. And that article is on this. I went ahead and attached that link to this as well. So I understand it's important to do your own research, and I think that's a valid point. We did a lot of research, and we did a lot of research in the beginning where, quite honestly, there wasn't a lot of research out there to be done. And a lot of it, unfortunately, again, has come from political nature. And I'm not saying it's all right. I'm not saying it's all wrong. And I'm by no means a doctor of epidemiology or a doctor of chemistry. But I can tell you we did do an extensive amount of research. And to be quite honest, it's a little bit of a slap in the face, I think, to all the teachers and all the administrators that did a great deal of research in the development of this plan. But I'll be glad to share this with you.
I think one other quick point too to just bring up, when was it or right before Thanksgiving, was when we were all remote at that point. Again, that was kind of, and we also had that in the beginning with Lincoln School when, around September timeframe, I believe it was, when they were 100% remote. And obviously one of our main goals, and I know administration and us as a board, is to keep kids in school. We want to be in school. We don't want to be doing the remote learning. Since that time, since that right before Thanksgiving, there has not been a discussion or a time where we have not had to even talk about going remote again. Again, one of the common denominators within that, I believe, and again, I'm on the same boat. I'm not advocating for or against, but it just seems to be a common denominator that with the mask, this has kept, number one, our teachers in school and our kids.
The other thing I might mention is I have had no staff members say, take the masks off.
I have not either.
I have had probably 4 people contact me about taking masks off and doing away with them or allowing the opt-out. And I've probably had 40 people say leave them on. And that's from staff. It's also from medical people in the community.
I think another good point too is, part of school and part of being in school is to be able to participate in extracurricular activities. This basketball season, basketball, wrestling, swimming, during this winter sports season, we've had, correct me if I'm wrong, no cancellations because of COVID, correct?
Right.
And I do have to agree, I do like Nora's smile.
Well, I think that while many of you are really anxious about the opt-out form, from a teaching point of view, particularly at the high school, I'm going to say I'm only going to be interested in, you can wear a mask if you want, or you don't have to wear a mask. The asking a student if your parents have signed and they have 150 kids, then they have to mark on the seating chart who wore their mask that day, so if somebody comes in. To me, that is not education. So I want to get to a point where we can just say, if you want to wear a mask, fine, wear a mask. If you don't want to wear a mask, you don't wear a mask, but not, the form isn't a part of the thing. It's just up to the parents or the student, whatever. I also think it's important to note that I have a grandson that he plays basketball, he comes off the bench, he takes his mask off, he goes in and plays, he comes back, he sticks his mask on. Don't even think about it. It's just not, it's not a big deal, and part of the reason it's not a big deal is because I think his parents, and I have not made a big deal out of it, but I don't know. Maybe he's just one of those kids that doesn't care. It just hasn't been a big deal for him. So, but I would be in favor of at some point if we can do away with the masks, that'd be great, but I want to just either have it and not have the form involved. That is really cumbersome, I think. You know?
So what is that point? I mean, is there a way that we can assign some metrics to this whole situation?
Are you?
So everyone can be crystal clear?
I guess in my opinion, Eric, you know, we've signed the resolution as a board, given administration authority to make decisions around COVID. And we did that. And in my opinion, what I'd look for is, and I agree with you, we need to have some sort of metric, you know, because things have changed. We all know that, we all agree. When we put together the tiered system before school started, things changed, you know, very quickly as the school year went on. And so I think it's okay that that happens because everything with this pandemic has been a moving target. But now to go back and ask Jason, Dr. Nielsen, to look at, can you have discussions, maybe bring the COVID task force back together and look at, are there some metrics to go back to whatever that means, whether it's using the opt-outs or masks aren't necessarily required, what are those different steps? And then bring that back and present that for putting into place. That's my opinion.
You know, make it much easier to do when this was going to end. You know, now you have new strains coming in and you don't know what they're going to do. However, again, I think with a vaccine, the people who want to be vaccinated will be vaccinated probably, I don't know, late summer, you know, mid to late summer, I don't know. Or if we get lucky and they have a couple more vaccines developed and they roll them out a little faster, it could be the end of April.
And I'm not trying to pass the buck either, back to administration and saying as a board, we're not willing to make that decision. But we did make that decision in the beginning to give administration authority to do that.
Right.
So I think as a board, it is, what we're just asking is, can you relook at this? Can you maybe bring back to the board some of those metrics that would put us in a different position? And maybe we need to completely relook at the tier system as well that was put into place. Again, even though we published that, does that mean it's, you know, it's the Bible at that point?
I think it would certainly help relieve some of the animosity that some folks have towards the district, and I think it would increase transparency, and I think we should be doing everything we can to be very clear with the public, and everything is not very clear right now, and that's not the fault of anyone, because COVID is just, it is the way it is, but I think that we can be doing something to make it more clear for our patrons.
Yeah. First of all, I want to thank everyone who comes out on both sides of this. To make your wishes known is not always easy, and I appreciate, and that's how I learn a lot of the times is from everyone else on both sides. I want to thank the parents that bring their kids and have them wearing the masks. The teachers that are here every day and keep showing up and teaching our kids. I do think we need to make sure that our teachers are careful in how they treat our kids, because bullying from kids or from teachers is not an acceptable matter. And as the last thing, my kids both are at the university, and they have to be tested every couple of weeks, and they always have to wear masks when they're at school. And so one thing that wearing masks here does get you prepared for that. They don't have the option of not wearing the mask, and well, other than not going to school. So if you're going to be on campus and in classes, that's a requirement. So now once you read your.
Can I just ask one quick question?
Sure.
I didn't see the meeting notice, but is this discussion item something that someone can make a motion on and we vote on something related to this tonight?
No, it's not an action item, so it would have to be an action item to do that.
Thanks.
That's according to our attorneys.
That's fine. That's just a question.
That's just an answer.
First, I'd like to apologize to the Board of Education that this is something being brought to you as a board and not resolved in the superintendent's office. And that you as a board are having to discuss and debate this issue yet again, and possibly bring it to resolution. Listen, folks, I understand it's a pain to wear masks. I really do. COVID cases are going down through these efforts, and masks have been proven over and over again to be the cheapest, easiest way to continue that downward trend. They help keep kids in school. They help the economy get back on track. They're helping us get back to normal. And that's what we all want. I know the plan changed. In reference to the plan that we wrote, I know it changed. I wish we could have seen more clearly from the beginning of this pandemic, but that's not how life goes. A favorite quote of mine is from the book of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. The best laid schemes of mice and men often go awry. And similarly, no plan of operation, whether it's a vacation, whether it's a plan of financial safety or security, no plan of operation extends with any certainty beyond the first contact with the main hostile force. In this case, our hostile force was an unprecedented and unpredictable pandemic. And this year, we were very much at war with it. And yes, the battle plan changed because it had to. The plan. Keep in mind the word plan is critical here. It's not law. We said from the beginning that our plan would have to be fluid and that we would need to adapt and change with the dynamics of the situation. It was already designed to be flexible, a flexible path moving forward through the uncharted waters in order to keep kids safely in school. But at no point was it meant to be carved in stone. We were using the best information available at any given time, and a COVID task force team of experts was involved at every step. We also collaborated with schools in our area, including one right down the road that also gave an opt-out form for masks, but has since rescinded it and now requires them, just like we do. Though it should also be noted that they haven't received a whole lot of calls for reinstatement of the waivers either. Quite frankly, every school, and I will restate my statement here, because if Sabrina found one that's not requiring masks, so be it. But I would say most schools, 90% of schools, within 200 miles of us are wearing masks. And most people have come to understand that it's just what we have to do to get through this. Recent polls of Americans show that 75 to 90% of Americans agree masks are necessary. And an overwhelming majority of medical professionals and organizations in the entire world say the same. This is just what we have to do to protect everyone, especially those most susceptible to the virus. If we can help, why on earth wouldn't we choose to do that? We've provided the opt-out forms for masks at the beginning of the school year based on incomplete information and a desire to please all sides. And quite honestly, folks, had we not offered the opt-out masks, you'd all been angry with us at that point. And at the same time, we would have had a whole set of people on the other side that would have been angry with us because we weren't masking.
We would have had a lot more respect for being honest, though.
We weren't not trying to be honest. I think that's the point I'm trying to make. Is that at no point ever did we intend to mislead or, in some people's words, lie to people. Again, I go back to the fact that this is a situation that none of us had any idea how it was going to turn out. But as we know, you can please all the people some of the time, but you can never please people all the time. I understand that not everyone agrees with our decision here, but we've had as many or more in the community respond with gratitude. This year, we've had to balance the desires of individuals against the safety of every single student and every single staff member. And we are never going to win any popularity contests in that battle. I don't want masks to go on for any longer than they have to, but I also don't want to see another spike in cases that brings us back to the potential for the loss of in-person learning. We've come this far and we're winning. Kids are still in school. We can't stumble at the finish line because we're tired. Once vaccines are fully distributed, we will be able to reevaluate the situation. The plan can change as it has at other points this year. At one point during the year, we said if we were at Tier 3, kids would not be in school. But we heard from multiple parents, some in this room, that they wanted their kids in school because they had to go to work. And I am hopeful that once our staff is completely vaccinated, we can look at the other options for everyone involved. Hopefully this will occur by the end of February or the 1st of March, and I haven't got an update today as to when that can happen that I'll share with you during the superintendent's report. But as with everything this year, none of us are in control of that timeline. We can't predict what will actually happen. We can only control our response to the circumstances. Here are a few facts for us to remember, whether we like them or not. These things are realities we have to face. 6 feet of social distancing is not easy to accomplish in a school building. It's not easy to accomplish in this room. But yet we've been asked at all turns during the year and through this pandemic, and quite honestly, not by me, but by people who make a lot bigger decisions than I do, to remain 6 feet away from each other. Keeping kids and teachers safely in school has been and will remain our goal. Since last March, parents have expressed their full discontent and lack of desire to have kids learning remotely at home or sent home to quarantine due to exposure. We're not in control of those quarantine rules, folks. That's the public health solutions. That's not our job. That's their job. I understand wearing masks is not a cure-all. I'm perfectly aware of that. The only way to avoid getting the virus is to eliminate the 3 C's in accordance to our governor. Avoid crowded places, close contacts, and confined spaces. As pointed out by Governor Ricketts, to completely eradicate the 3 C's and accomplish 6 feet of space in schools is impossible. To do that, our only option would be remote learning, which again, we were told people did not want to do that. We wanted our kids in school so we could work. Wanted our kids in school so they could learn. We're still under the CDC quarantine and isolation orders of 7 to 10 or 14 days. These orders are mandatory for positively exposed cases and enforced by public health departments, not schools. We don't have a say in those requirements. We don't. That's not our job. We don't determine who gets quarantined. An example of this is since the beginning of the second quarter, our ACP students, I think some of you in here referred to them tonight, our ACP 1 and 2 students who due to serious health risks and under doctor's orders have not worn masks. Those students that have underlying health conditions and have a doctor's release because of a health condition have not been made to wear masks. But because of this, they've been quarantined by the Public Health Solutions Department for 20 days in the second quarter, and were just quarantined at the beginning of the third quarter for another 10 days. Not by our choice. We'd have much preferred they were in school. The students wearing masks are still at school. Simply stated, we're able to keep kids in school because masks made it much less likely for them to spread the virus among each other while in our buildings. Although children are not statistically in as much danger from the virus and may appear perfectly healthy, it is now widely accepted science that they are great conductors, carriers, and spreaders of the virus. not by their fault. They're just being kids, which they can easily expose or infect the many bus drivers, teachers, cooks, custodians, secretaries, administrators, and staff they come into contact with on a daily basis. And now there are emerging questions about the new variants of the virus that may cause a greater instance of complications in children, including heart damage that could follow them the rest of their lives. At the end of January alone, the American Academy of Pediatrics marked a 16% rise in child COVID-19 cases over 2 weeks. Another example of research that I've done on my own. So we are not out of the woods yet, and we need to keep acting accordingly. Additionally, 2 other bits of facts that some of us might choose to ignore. Some of us are not in a position that we can. 1, currently, we operate under a federal building and public transportation mask mandate. I was asked the other day why our preschoolers are wearing masks on the bus. Because it's a mask mandate. Asked us to wear masks for 100 days. All this being said, I like to think we're nearing something like the end of this battle with COVID. And it's unfortunate that we've had to spend this year so distracted by it. But it's also unfortunate that the issue itself has become so infected with politics and so infected with misinformation on either side. I don't care which side you're on. When the bottom line is that 2 million people worldwide have died from this. That could be debated. Because we'll say, well, only 1 million of them died of COVID. The other 1 million were misdiagnosed because they had underlying health conditions. I don't know. All I know is there's people dying, and I don't like to see people die. It pains me that instead of spending our time discussing ways to help one another, we spend debating with whether or not we should help at all. Someday, we will all look back on this time and marvel at how everything unfolded. Much like we do when we look back on World War II. Much like we do when we look back at the wars we fought in past history. We marvel at how people were treated when they came back from Vietnam. I marvel at the fact of how our teachers and the people on the COVID task force team that have quite frankly been put in a terrible position to have to make decisions have been treated. They didn't ask for that. Just as our soldiers didn't ask to have to go to war. But we've been in a war with COVID. I know I'm not alone in the room when I say that I dearly hope to recall that no one, from our youngest students to our most experienced staff members, died due to complications with COVID because of our failure to act. I'm the one that shoulders that responsibility. I'm the one that shoulders the responsibility that if a 5-year-old in this district dies, like happened in Scottsbluff, Nebraska, I'm the one that has to live with that on my conscience. I want to know that we did everything we possibly could to keep every single person, whether it's a 5-year-old, it's Nora sitting in that chair, or it's my 85-year-old cook at an elementary school, would not be in danger. Then, when the emotions and the debates are long forgotten, I will have no question in my mind or in my heart that it was worth it to ask everyone to just simply wear a mask.
All right, everyone has had an opportunity and spoken at least once.
Aaron, to your question about whether or not we can get the COVID task force team together again, I have no problem doing that. I don't know that we'll come up with a specific set of matrix numbers. I don't know if that's possible, but I think we can certainly discuss when is the time period that we drop masks.
I think that'd be great. Thank you.
All right, any board members that wish to have anything put on the agenda for the committee of the whole or the board meeting, get a hold of me or Jason and we'll get that taken care of. All right, we're going to move on to the action portion of the meeting. Approval of the 2021-22 school calendar. Can I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 approve the 2021-22 school calendar as presented.
I have a motion. Can I have a second? Second. Second by Eric. Any comments or questions? Oh, did you have anything you wanted to comment on?
Yeah,
You've given it to us. Do you want to go ahead?
I will.
Okay.
And I have sent you an email, but just want to make sure that other people hear kind of where our calendar is at this point in time. First day of school will be Thursday, August 12th, and which will be nice because it's a Thursday, so students will come back for a day and a half and then have a break and then come back for that full week. So that will be this year we started on a Wednesday, and so I think that Thursday is probably kind of a nice compromise. Plus, our teachers will return on the 9th, so they will have that week in the 7th and the 8th as well to kind of finish loose ends and to finish, family vacations so that they can come back ready to go. New teachers, which is also nice, will report the 3rd rather than that Monday coming right off of July, so that's a good thing as well. The first day of school will only be K through 6 and 9th grade. This year we did just 6th grade at the middle school and it worked out very, very well, so we are going to keep that because it is nice just to bring that group that is just coming into that new school, the big school, so to speak. It's nice to keep them by themselves so that they get their first day jitters out and then they're able to come the next day with all the kids. Preschool parent-teacher conferences will remain in October during first semester. That seemed to work out very, very, very well because the preschool teachers got to know the kids a little bit more, plus they were able to share more data about what was truly going on with that child and what the child needed to work on, what the child was doing well at, and they could have a great conversation with parents and guardians. We will observe Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. holiday this year, and so that is on the calendar in January. Graduation will be on Sunday. And we looked at this one again, and we, at first had it scheduled for Saturday, but when we looked at that Saturday, what we found out is there are state championships for soccer and for baseball. So we wanted to make sure that all kids were able to attend graduation. So that is why we will probably from here on out keep it on Saturday keep it on Sunday, as long as Mr. Alexander and I are looking at that.
But we moved it to the 3rd Sunday, correct?
It is the 3rd Sunday because of how it falls, yes.
But that's not going, I wondered, since the 1st is on a Sunday, if that's why. Because I've already been asked if that's going to stay then on the 3rd Sunday, or if we'll go back to being on Mother's Day.
It depends upon how the rest of the year falls.
That's typically how it's been, but I just wanted to be sure that we haven't decided.
Yes, and so it comes with the number of hours, and we have to make sure our seniors have, really, if we are looking at students that we are concerned about number of hours, it's our seniors and probably our preschoolers. And our preschoolers, because when they have the half days, and so we count the minutes with preschool, so that sometimes gets to be tricky, especially since when we do have a snow day in there, or, they don't have preschool on those Wednesdays. And so that, you just have to make sure you have enough hours. But that, yes, if we can keep it on that 3rd Wednesday, or 3rd Sunday, my goodness sakes. If we can keep it on that 3rd Sunday, we will do that because we know that Mother's Day is a nice holiday to recognize moms as well. And so we will look at that, but that depends upon where the end of the year falls. The next thing is we have decreased the number of snow days built into 2 because of the number of hours really for our K-11 students. We have an overabundance of hours, so we've just decreased it to 2. And however, after this year, I'm sitting here thinking, man, I think we should have 5 snow days because we may be using 5. So we have those built in. I can add the 3rd, and that would just put us on getting out on the 26th.
Again, from what we've dealt with in the past, I think we need to make it abundantly clear to our staff that please do not make vacation plans
100%.
based on what you think the last day of school is.
Exactly.
That has been an issue in the past, knowing that you may have to go several more days in May, and what is on the calendars the last day in May may not be the last day of school.
Yes. And the nice thing is when we went to building them into that last day, so then we take them off, that has worked out so much better. Because like this year, our last day is going to be Friday, May 21st, but that's what it is on the calendar. So we've already used our snow days.
But shrinking the built-in days, like you said, especially for this year, does concern me just a hair.
Yes. After this year, yes, I understand.
Speaking of the snow days, has there been some discussion, and I think we talked about this at the beginning of the year, or maybe last year, or something along those lines, that, because of obviously the remote learning capabilities that we now have, utilizing those instead of, like last Monday. Yes, it's a snow day, it's not an in-person day, but it's a remote learning day. I know that throws in a bunch of different, caveats to that, but what does for example, as far as getting our hours and days and so forth, what's the state look at that as, or is that even an option?
At this point in time, the state does not see if it has to be synchronous learning. So if we want the full 8 hours to count, the students have to be online for the full 8 hours in a class.
So it's not really.
100%. I don't agree with that. I do not agree putting a child in front of a device for 8 full hours. I don't think that is right. The other thing that, as you look at it, we do not send home devices right now. Our freshmen through our seniors are the ones that are taking the devices home still. And we are, continuing to work on that and finesse that just as we look at that one-to-one possibility at the high school. But we will not probably see that happen with our K-8. And so what would happen is if we do provide that remote learning on those snow days, I think you would have students falling behind because they don't have access. And so that would be a concern that we would pose. And, snow days are kind of a gift that I think sometimes you're given to. So it is, the kids love to just get out and play. And I think we had a couple teachers that sent out ideas of like, let's do these experiments with the snow and let's go build a snowman. And so I think we need to phrase it more so, let's do enrichment. And here's some enrichment things that you can do on this day to, help your child and to continue to help moving them forward. I think that would be a great idea to add those pieces in rather than that remote learning day. But right now the state will not look at it as, they will not look at asynchronous learning unless to count for the total hours. Yes, so we would end up having to write waivers still if we exceeded the number of hours or did not meet. Yes. The other thing that we are continuing to look at, and as I have noted and talked to a couple of you about, is just our PLC days. Because we know that is we know that that's a hardship for parents at times to take off work to go get their child, to get them home and then back to work, or to make those arrangements. So we are continuing to look at that. We will have PLC leader training, and we will continue to research and to go through the process of identifying, okay, what is our process, how is it working, what's not working, what are other districts doing, how can we look at that, how can we adjust, just so that we can make sure that it is the most beneficial for our staff, it's the most beneficial for our students. Because the nice thing about that professional learning community time is it's time for our teachers to learn. It's time for our teachers to become better. As we have seen throughout this pandemic, we know that our students are not where they need to be. We know that there's not been as much growth as we would like to see. We know that there's learning loss. I know that the World Herald, and we shared data with the World Herald, and we'll be sharing data with the board later, either this month or March. We'll be sharing data and showing where our students are. And there are learning losses that have occurred. And so I think that is, the PLC time is nice because our teachers need time to learn about how to help. They need to learn about how do we make sure that the instruction in our classrooms is solid and is helping our students move forward. But we also want to make sure that we look at it, evaluate it, because it is a process in place that needs to continually be evaluated, continually be researched, and just make sure that what we're doing is what's best for kids and what's best for our district. So that is the calendar. Are there any other questions about the calendar at this point in time? Those are just some of the few major changes, but for the most part, it is very similar to what this year provides as well. And I would ask for you to vote unless you have any questions. Okay, thank you.
Any comments or questions? All right, hearing none, can I have your votes, please? All right, that is approved with 7 yes votes. Next up, we have the administrator's report. This is Corey Hillstra.
Just a little fact sheet is coming around to everyone. There's one for Danielle too. I don't know if she wants one, but I'm not going to read through this word for word. This is just some of the data on the special education mental health services that we've been able to offer. We started in 2016 with Nebraska Mental Health, seeing a very small number of kids, and then we just saw the benefit of that. So over the years, we've expanded the amount of hours and services we've been able to provide. So this year, currently, we are providing weekly individual mental health therapy to 47 students, verified students. And that is up about 9 students from last year. And you can see I broke it down by grade level, and the biggest percentage of students utilizing the mental health services are 3rd through 6th grade. And that's typically been what it's been each year. That age group tends to have the most referrals. One thing Nebraska Mental Health also does, we do individual group, like a kindergarten, social skills group at like skills at the middle school. Actually, they're getting ready to start one. But in the past, we've only been able to offer a limited number of groups, and this year, because of COVID, they're doing all that virtually, so the therapist uses the Superflex social skills curriculum. I don't know if you guys have heard of that. It focuses on social awareness and self-regulation to help kids learn some coping skills that maybe they don't have in their everyday life. And with COVID, instead of sending multiple therapists into multiple buildings in the same week, we're doing this virtually. So the therapists record the lesson ahead of time and then have an activity with it. And then the special ed teacher will play the lesson for the group and help them with the activity. So I don't think that's as effective as when the therapist goes in and does the social skills group directly, but it has allowed us, because it's recorded ahead of time, it's allowed those therapists to then see more kids individually. So that's why our numbers are a little higher this year. So that has been, I guess, one positive to the COVID, but do you guys have any questions on that? I know there's a lot of information on here to look at.
What happens between 6th grade and 7th grade? Do the children just not want to get the service, or?
That's part of it, yeah. Sometimes the therapist will, say that they have reached the end of the need for their therapy, and so they're dismissed that way. But typically, it is either the parent or the student has decided they don't want to receive the services. And sometimes if the family seeks therapists from an outside agency, then we don't provide it within the school because we don't want 2 different therapists providing services to the same kid in case they have differing views or methods. And we're at a point, and we always, each year we get to this point where we are pretty much maxed out, and we have to say, sorry, we can't take any more referrals, which is never something we like to do, but we only have so many
many students do you think we would serve if we never said we were maxed out?
Well, so right now, the 47 students that are receiving individual therapy, that's 9.3% of our SPED population. I would guess from till the end of the school year, I'll probably get another 10 referrals, so.
That you'll have to say no to?
Now, we do have like the skip process, which, you know, therapy through Blue Valley is included in that. I think it's just a limited number of sessions, whereas this is, you know, as long as they're in school, there's not a limit to the number of services.
So does everybody who needs it gets it, it's just the number of times they can be seen gets smaller, or?
So what, you know, because we hate to say, oh, no, you can't have services because you asked for it in March instead of back in October when we had lots of openings. We'll look at them case by case and see if, one, do they have other alternatives, like is skip an option? Do they have insurance that would cover it outside of school? And two, are there other kids that can, you know, instead of being seen for an hour a week, that can go to monitor basis, so they're, you know, 10 minutes a week, and then we can make room for those kids. So it's, we don't just say, no, sorry, we're full, but it's a little bit of a process to see if we can make room for them, for any additional students. But
just because we're not helping them doesn't mean we're not getting them help. Yeah. Anyone else have any comments or questions? All right, thank you. All right, superintendent report, Mr. Alexander.
Okay. First is just kind of an update regarding the USDA reimbursement for free lunch program. If you remember, at the start of the school year, every school in the state was allowed the opportunity to sign up for what's called the SFSP program, which allowed free lunches to every student in the school as long as you signed up for it. We did sign up for that program that's fully reimbursable through the USDA via the NDE. So the money comes from the USDA into the Nebraska Department of Education, and then we submit our expenses and they reimburse us for that. We received notice last week that the reimbursement for the free lunch program through the SFSP program had been delayed, which was kind of a red flag, and lent itself to the question, will we continue to be able to offer those free lunches? We were not informed how long it would be or how much, if we would continue to receive full reimbursement. But thankfully enough today, the reimbursement did come in the form, it amounted this month to $116,156 of reimbursement for free lunches. The only reason I share this with you is out of concern for the future of the program. I don't think at the beginning when we signed up, we were ever told by the USDA how long this program would be in place. I don't know those facts for sure, I'll research them. But I know our patrons have all been receiving free lunches at this point, and in the event that this changes and the reimbursement doesn't continue to come, obviously that creates a change for us as well. So I just want to make you aware of that. Hopefully, with the next round of stimulus that comes for COVID, we can continue to offer those free lunches, but we'll see what happens. Current openings in the district, as you know, and we've been communicated with via email, we have multiple openings in the district right now. All of these openings are a result of either retirement, death, or significant moves due to significant life changes, whether it be marriage or other sorts of things that take people away from us. So, but we are working very quickly to find highly qualified new staff. Last week, an example of that was we had 6 special education openings. Beth was able to confirm to get one of those positions hired. So she knows she's got to work it out for us. She's working hard to get all those replaced. So we'll continue to do so, moving quickly as quickly as we can. Trailblazer Conference meeting is Wednesday to discuss future plans, including expansion and any other conference changes that might be on the docket. And as I promised, a vaccine update for you. We've been patiently waiting our turn for the vaccine. We were told initially that it would be the beginning of February. That time is now, and it has passed. So we all know it's due to the shortages in the vaccine that the entire country is seeing. So we've experienced delays, but we're told it would be in the 1st of March. Today in a meeting, there was actually a lottery drawing held for all the schools in the ESU 5 and ESU 6 Public Health Solutions area. And that drawing, we were the first ones picked. So the amount of doses that they can give us, I think, is right around 110 the first go around. So we'll be able to give 110 doses in that first set of drawings. I think our next drawing was 5 weeks later. So the way it turns out, 110 of our employees will be able to get vaccinated in the first go around. Then the next ones will have to wait till that next go around comes around. So that's how it worked.
Isn't it nice to be number one?
It was. We got picked. I was like, yeah, this is better than winning the lottery.
Jason, how do you determine which staff receives those? I mean, are we gonna have an internal lottery then from the persons that are interested in getting the vaccination?
That is a great question. We had, I think in all, we had a little over 200 people sign up. So tomorrow we have an administration team meeting planned, and that's on the agenda. So probably, I would guess, one of the things that makes the most sense is knowing the data and the research that we've been provided, is that we'll have a discussion about, does it make the most sense to look at classroom teachers first, and then in that specific order, their ages. And
Well, that's what I mean, are we gonna kind of follow that, their age? Is there a high-risk patient, or a high-risk, person out there? I didn't know if we were gonna kind of tier that.
yeah, I think that's
Okay.
probably some of the criteria we'll use, but that's a great question. So we'll talk about all that tomorrow and hopefully have a solid plan for that. But just so everybody's clear, we're told that the first vaccine, we won't be called until around the 1st of March, so we still have a couple weeks to go.
Single dose or double dose?
I think it's the double dose variety. They didn't tell us that today, so. And that's all I have, unless there's questions.
Any comments or questions for Jason? All right, with that, the next regular meeting of the Board of Education will be March 8th, 2021 at 7 p.m. in the Administration Building. The Committee of the Whole meeting will be February 25th, 2021 at 6 p.m. in the Administration Building. An agenda for the meeting, which shall be kept continually current, is readily available for public inspection at the Superintendent's office during normal business hours. I would now take a motion for adjournment.
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 adjourn.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Janet. All right, can I have your votes, please? Thank you. We have some votes. We are adjourned.